I didn't move to the edge of a forest because I hated people. I moved there because I understood them. Specifically, I understood that people like to tell other people what to do, and that the farther you live from them, the less often they try. Or at least, that's what I thought, until I learned that distance means nothing to an HOA with clipboards, egos, and too much free time. The house was perfect. 5 acres. Tree line on 3 sides. A shallow creek running through the back. Deer tracks everywhere. Birds I couldn't name. Quiet so deep you could hear your own thoughts arguing with each other. That should have been my first warning. When I bought the place, the fence was already there. Not a shiny white picket fence. Not vinyl. Not ornamental iron. It was a forest fence, wooden posts, wire mesh, reinforced at the bottom, running along the tree line. Old. Practical. Ugly, if you were the type of person who thought nature should look like a golf course. The seller told me exactly why it existed. Wild boars, he said. Excuse me. Wild boars. Apparently, the nearby state land had a growing feral hog population. Most years they stayed deep in the woods. Some years, especially dry ones, they wandered. The fence wasn't decorative. It was defensive. I nodded, signed the papers, and thought nothing more of it. I was wrong. 2 weeks after moving in, I got my first letter. Not the welcome letter. Not a neighbor introduction. A violation notice. Unapproved fencing structure failure to comply may result in fines or forced removal. I laughed. Out loud. In my kitchen. Alone. They were complaining about a fence that predated my ownership. I called the HOA office. That was my second mistake. The woman on the phone sounded like she had memorized the rule book and weaponized it. Your fence does not comply with Section 8.3 of the Community Aesthetic Guidelines. It's in the forest. Yes, but it's visible from the community walking trail during winter months. So, when there are no leaves. Correct. I tried explaining. The boars. The damage. The previous owner. She interrupted. You are responsible for compliance, as the current homeowner. I asked if there was an exception process. There is, she said brightly. But fences of that type are never approved. I asked what would happen if I didn't remove it. There was a pause. Then, the HOA will arrange removal and bill you. I attended the next HOA board meeting. Mistake number 3. The board consisted of 5 people who all looked like they had always wanted authority and had finally found a place where no one could stop them. The president, let's call her Linda, smiled at me like I was a child who had drawn on the walls. Your fence is an eyesore, she said. It's in the woods. Our community values uniformity. I value not having wild animals destroy my property. She waved a hand dismissively. We've never had an issue with wildlife. Someone on the board nodded vigorously. I asked if they'd ever lived on the forest edge. Silence. Linda leaned forward. You have 30 days to remove it. Over the next few weeks, I tried everything. Photos of boar damage from neighboring counties, state wildlife reports, emails from the previous owner, a request to reinforce rather than remove denied. Ignored. Dismissed. Then the letters started stacking up. Final notice, non-compliance penalty pending. I considered legal action. But I made one crucial error in judgment. I assumed they wouldn't actually do it. I came home from work on a Thursday and saw tire tracks. Heavy ones. The fence was gone. Not partially removed. Not taken down carefully. Gone. Posts ripped out. Wire cut. Debris piled like trash. A crew had done it fast and sloppy, because they weren't paid to care. I called the HOA immediately. Linda answered. The violation has been corrected. You destroyed my fence. You failed to comply. Do you know why that fence was there? She sighed. If you're worried about deer, they're not deer. She paused, then laughed. Sir, we live in a residential community. That night I heard them. At first, it sounded like heavy rain. Then like trees cracking. Then like something breathing. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped onto the porch. The beam hit movement. Dark shapes. Low to the ground. Dozens of them. Eyes reflecting back. Grunts. Snorts. The sound of tusks scraping bark. Wild boars had entered the property for the first time in years. The fence was gone, and they were hungry. By sunrise, my yard looked like a war zone. The ground was torn apart. The creek bank collapsed. My garden gone. And beyond my property, tracks leading straight into the neighborhood. I stood there, coffee in hand, staring at the destruction. My phone buzzed.
An hoa email notification.
Residents are reminded not to feed wildlife. I smiled, because the HOA had just made the biggest mistake of its existence. The boars hit the first HOA board members' lawn neighbors. Panic animal control gets involved if you've never seen wild boars up close. Let me explain something very clearly. They are not large pigs. They are angry refrigerators with knives on their faces. And now they had discovered manicured lawns. My phone exploded.
Group chats.
Unknown numbers.
Hoa bờ lát email.
Subject line, urgent. Wildlife disturbance translation. Something bad happened, and it's not our fault. I stepped onto my porch again, coffee in hand, and looked toward the neighborhood. 3 houses down, I could already hear screaming. Not horror movie screaming. The HOA kind. High-pitched. Indignant. Offended. I followed the sound. Linda's lawn was gone. Not damaged. Not chewed up.
Gone.
The grass had been peeled back like carpet. Flower beds uprooted. Decorative rocks scattered. Her prized rose bushes, ones she'd bragged about during meetings, were snapped in half and trampled into the mud. There were hoof prints everywhere. Tusks marks on her mailbox. And right in the center of it all, a single, unmistakable pile of boar droppings.
Naturelle signature.
Linda stood on her driveway in a bathrobe and slippers, clutching her phone like it was personally responsible. "This is impossible," she kept saying. I watched from the sidewalk, silently, hands in pockets. A neighbor whispered, "What did this?" Linda snapped, "Someone's pigs got loose." I cleared my throat. "They're not pigs." She turned.
Saw me.
Her face did something strange, like recognition mixed with rage mixed with math she didn't want to do. "What do you mean?" "Wild boars," I said. "Feral hogs. The reason the fence existed." She scoffed. "This neighborhood has never had wild boars." I gestured toward the destruction. "It does now." By 8 a.m., animal control arrived. 2 trucks. 3 officers. One man who looked like he had already had a very long week, and it wasn't even Monday. They surveyed the damage. The officer knelt, touched the soil, and nodded grimly.
Yep. Boars.
Linda folded her arms. "How do we get rid of them?" The officer stood up slowly. "You don't get rid of boars." Everyone stared. They're territorial. Smart. Aggressive. Once they find a food source, lawns count. They keep coming back. Linda's voice rose. "This is a residential community." The officer looked at the forest. "Not anymore." The officer turned to me. "You live on the edge, right?" "Yes." "Did you have fencing?" "Yes." "Still do." I smiled.
No.
Silence. Linda's head snapped toward me. "What do you mean no?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos. The torn-out posts. The cut wire. The debris pile. "HOA removal," I said calmly. The officer blinked, then slowly turned toward Linda. "You tore down a wildlife barrier next to state land." Linda's mouth opened.
Closed.
Opened again. "That fence violated our aesthetic standards." The officer rubbed his face. "Well, congratulations," he said. "Your standards just invited a sounder." "A what?" "A sounder," he repeated.
Group of boars.
Usually 20 to 30. Someone gasped. He wasn't finished. "And once they establish a route, they'll expand." HOA sent out a notice that afternoon. Residents are advised to remain indoors after dark. Do not approach wildlife. Do not attempt deterrence without HOA approval. I laughed so hard I had to sit down. That night, the boars returned. Only this time, they didn't stop at Linda's. They moved like a military unit. Yards. Trash cans. Patios. Anything soft was torn up. Anything edible was devoured. Someone's inflatable hot tub didn't survive. A Tesla charging cable was chewed clean through. The Nextdoor app descended into chaos. Posts flew in by the minute. Is anyone else hearing growling? Something hit my garage door. Why did an HOA allow this? This is unacceptable, my favorite. Can we fine whoever owns the animals? I replied once. Just once. They called an emergency HOA meeting the next day. Standing room only. People were furious. Children crying. Dogs barking. One man holding a baseball bat like it was emotional support equipment. Linda banged the gavel. We are addressing the wildlife situation. Someone shouted, "You caused it." She ignored them. We have contacted animal control. The same officer stood up. You cannot relocate them easily. Trapping is dangerous. Lethal removal requires state permits. Someone asked, what about fencing? The officer looked directly at Linda. That would help. Every head turned toward me. Linda's jaw clenched. That fence was non-compliant. I stood. That fence kept the boars out. Murmurs spread like fire. A neighbor asked, can you put it back? I smiled. I'd love to. Linda snapped. The HOA will not approve. The officer cut her off. You should. Dead silence. After the meeting, Linda cornered me. This is your fault, she hissed. I raised an eyebrow. You removed my fence. You didn't fight hard enough. You had the power. She leaned closer. If you reinstall it without approval, we'll fine you daily. I nodded. Then I'll document everything. She laughed. Do whatever you want. That was her fourth mistake. The boars escalated. They learned schedules. Trash night became buffet night. One of them shattered a sliding glass door. Another charged a dog walker. No one was seriously injured, but fear spread fast. The neighborhood that once obsessed over mailbox height was now terrified of leaving their homes after sunset. And guess what stopped the boars every single time? The edge of my property. Because even without the fence, the terrain changed. The creek slowed them. The trees confused them. They wanted to go through my land. And they couldn't. Not yet. I called a lawyer. He listened quietly, then said, this is beautiful. Beautiful. They removed a known safety structure, against documented advice, and caused property damage. So they're liable. I looked out at the forest, at the invisible line where the fence had been, and I realized something important. The HOA thought this was about appearances. The boars thought this was about territory. And I was about to teach them both a lesson they'd never forget. The HOA tries emergency fines boars breach deeper into the neighborhood. Media shows up the fence becomes a legal weapon. Linda loses control publicly. We're deep into the fallout now. The HOA's first instinct wasn't to fix the problem. It was to punish someone. And since wild boars don't pay fines, that someone was me. It arrived via certified mail. Notice of intent TO fine failure to maintain property safety, $250 per day, until resolved. I read it twice. Then laughed once. Then called my lawyer. He laughed longer. They're panicking, he said. And panic makes people stupid. I asked if I should pay. The HOA sent another letter. This one was angrier. Reinstallation of unapproved fencing will result in immediate penalties. Translation: please don't undo the mistake that proves we were wrong. I replied, politely, professionally, and with my lawyer CC'd. The removed fence was a wildlife mitigation structure. Its removal has resulted in measurable community harm. I am requesting emergency approval to reinstall. They denied it within an hour.
No explanación.
No vote. Just ego. The boars didn't just wander anymore. They charged. One slammed into a parked SUV and dented the door. Another flipped a grill like it weighed nothing. Someone posted security footage of a boar standing on a picnic table, sniffing the air like it owned the place. It did. And then something happened that changed everything. A teenage kid, trying to be brave for TikTok, ran toward a boar with his phone out. The boar charged back, missed him by inches. The video went online. By morning, it had 500,000 views. Media attention. Local news showed up before animal control could. Headlines popped up everywhere. HOA rules blamed for wild boar invasion, neighborhood under siege after fence removal, aesthetic guidelines versus angry wildlife. A reporter knocked on my door. Do you want to comment? I smiled. I warned them. They interviewed Linda next. Big mistake. She stood in front of the destroyed common area garden, arms crossed, fury barely contained. This situation is being exaggerated, she said. Behind her, a boar ran across the frame.
Live.
The cameraman didn't even pan away. The clip went viral. Memes followed immediately. Someone captioned it. The HOA called another emergency meeting. This time, no one was calm. People yelled. People cried. Someone demanded Linda resign. She refused. We are maintaining order, she insisted. Someone shouted. The boars have order. Animal control spoke again. You need fencing. Immediately. Heavy duty. Linda glanced at me. You may reinstall your fence. Temporarily. I raised a finger. Approved. In writing. She clenched her jaw. I hired the same contractor who had built the original fence years ago. He took one look at the damage and whistled.
Yep. Boars.
He rebuilt it stronger. Deeper posts. Reinforced mesh. Ground anchoring. It wasn't cheap, but it was documented. Receipts. Photos. Invoices. And most importantly, the boars stopped crossing my land. They hit the fence once.
Twice.
Then rerouted. Straight into the heart of the HOA-managed common areas. My lawyer filed. Against the HOA. Negligence. Property damage. Endangerment. Unauthorized destruction of safety infrastructure. Other homeowners joined. Then more. Then most. Linda received the notice during a board meeting. Someone recorded her face when she read it. It became a GIF. Fine stopped. Threats stopped. Emails stopped. The HOA's authority evaporated in real time. Animal control finally got state permission for removal. It took weeks. Cost tens of thousands. Guess who paid? Not me. The boars were eventually gone. The lawns would regrow. The damage would be repaired. But something else was broken beyond fixing. The illusion. The idea that control mattered more than reality. Linda resigned 3 days later. No speech.
No apology.
Just gone. The HOA sent out a revised guideline. Wildlife mitigation structures are permitted when necessary for safety. I framed it. Hung it by my door. Next to a photo of the original fence. If you've never watched an HOA realize it can't bully its way out of reality, I highly recommend it. It's like watching a wasp trapped inside a glass jar. Furious, loud, and completely powerless. The lawsuit entered discovery. That's lawyer language for everyone's emails are about to ruin their lives. My attorney requested all HOA communications about my fence, internal discussions about wildlife risks, records of prior complaints about animals contracts with the removal company. The HOA's lawyer objected. The judge disagreed. Turns out, judges don't plain as day. An email from a board member 2 years earlier. Lot 47 BS fence may be necessary due to hog activity. Removing it could create liability. Linda replied, we can't allow exceptions. If we let one ugly fence stay, others will follow. Another gem. Worst case, animal control handles it. My lawyer printed that one in color. The HOA filed an insurance claim. The insurance company responded with a letter so cold it could freeze lava. Claim denied. Intentional act exclusion translation. You knew the risk.
You did it anyway.
Not our problem. The HOA's reserve fund, meant for landscaping and holiday lights, was suddenly their legal defense fund. Residents were assessed emergency fees. Guess who they blamed? Linda. I got deposed first. 3 hours of questions. I stayed calm. I answered honestly. I showed photos. Then it was Linda's turn. She lasted 40 minutes. When asked if she knew about boars before ordering removal, she said no. Then my lawyer slid the email across the table. Silence. The court reporter later told me she'd never typed so slowly in her life. People stopped pretending. The same neighbors who once measured fence heights with rulers now wanted blood. Someone posted a spreadsheet showing Legal costs, damage payouts, animal control bills, all traced back to one decision. Linda stopped attending meetings. Her house went up for sale. The Boers had done what no one else could: unite the neighborhood. The courtroom smelled like old paper and bad decisions. The judge listened patiently. My lawyer laid it out simply. There was a safety barrier. They removed it. They were warned. Damage followed. The HOA's lawyer tried to argue aesthetics. The judge raised an eyebrow. Against wild boars. Case recessed for settlement talks. That's judge speak for "you're going to lose." The HOA paid. They also signed a consent order. No HOA, removal of safety structures, mandatory wildlife assessments, personal liability for board members acting outside expert advice. Linda's name was on the document. More than once.
Once. She tried to speak.
No one let her. Someone quietly slid a printed meme across the table. The one of her on live TV with the boar behind her. She stood.
Left.
Never came back. Months later, the forest was quiet again. The fence stood strong. The neighborhood was humbler. Rules got shorter. Meetings got quieter. People waved instead of watched. I received one last message from the HOA.
Short.
Formal. Thank you for your patience during this matter. I replied with a single attachment. A photo. The fence. At sunset. Time does something interesting to disasters. It smooths the sharp edges. Turns panic into story. Turns arrogance into a lesson no one wants to repeat. 2 years passed after the boar incident. The forest healed first. Grass returned where it had been ripped out. Rose bushes were replanted, simpler ones this time. The creek bank stabilized. And the fence never moved again. It weathered storms. Snow.
Heat.
Silence. No one complained. No one dared. The board changed completely. Not a single original member remained. The new president, Mark, was a former park ranger.
His first act.
He invited state wildlife experts to a meeting. Second act. He shortened the rulebook by half. Third. He added a clause titled, "Do not ignore people who know things." We all voted yes. Unanimously. Old habits die hard. 1 year, a new resident complained that my fence looked too industrial. The board asked one question. Is it working? Yes. That was the end of it. The meeting lasted 12 minutes. A record. I heard about Linda once more. She tried to join another HOA. Someone Googled her. She was not elected. The internet remembers. People ask why I keep the fence.
The boars are gone.
The risk is low. But the answer is simple. It's not just a fence. It's a reminder that rules without understanding are dangerous. That control without wisdom invites chaos. And that nature does not care about appearances. One evening, near sunset, I stood by the fence. A deer watched me from the trees. It didn't cross. It didn't panic. It simply respected the boundary. I respected it too. We both understood something the HOA once didn't. Boundaries exist for a reason. If you ever find yourself in a place where people value how things look more than how they work, remember the boars. Remember the fence. And remember that the forest always wins.